Hello again. This video is about the classwork starting on number 16 of chapter 6. Hopefully you remember from yesterday about inverses. Inverses are an equation or a function or a situation that undoes its inverse. So an inverse is an undoing function. So also hopefully you remember from yesterday, if I gave you an equation that you could come up with an equation that undid it. But today we're going to be talking about a different way to do it. So I'm looking at 16, letter A, or rather there's A and B and you could ignore those, but just for the first graph I'm going to do that, and then you guys can break up into groups to do the other two graphs. It says I'm going to give you a resource page, but I'm going to be lazy and just say you can sketch them or you can do it on some graph paper just to save some paper here. So again, let me start with the first graph here. So we have a graph, we have an equation. I could undo that equation by using what we learned yesterday, but I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to look at the graph and use that to help me out. So I'm going to look at the points that are highlighted there and just make a quick table of what I see. So for the table, the point that is most on the left side there, the x-intercept, it looks like to me that it's -6, 0. And the other one is, let's see, -4, 1. And then we have, the other one they've highlighted for me is 0, 3, 2, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 7. So that's a table of the original. Now, since inverses undo the original function, I can make a table of the inverse pretty easily. See where I got those? All I had to do was just switch the x's and the y's. Since each point is undone by the inverse, I can just switch around the x and y coordinates. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the original just so I can focus on the inverse. So that's the table of the inverse. I'm going to graph that on the same graph in red. So there is a graph of the inverse. The original one was a line, so is the inverse. Now you don't have to do this for each one, but just to check my work for this one, I'm going to find out the equation of the inverse using what I used from yesterday. Again, you don't have to do this for the other two graphs, but just as a review. The equation of the inverse, the red one, will be the same operations, but opposites, and also in the opposite order. So the first thing it should do is it should subtract 3 and then divide by 0.5. Since the original multiplies by 0.5 and then adds 3, I want to do the opposite things in the opposite order. So I want to make sure that, that my inverse does the right thing. And so to simplify, well, dividing by 0.5 is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So this is the same thing as 2x minus 6. So, and that is what that graph looks like because it starts at -6 and multiplies by 2. Again, you don't have to do that equation for each one, but that works out because I checked my work. So the next thing you want to do is work on the other two graphs. Again, you could ignore the things that say A and B. For each one, what we want to do is copy down the graph and then make a graph of the inverse using this idea of switching the tables. Good luck.